welcome again. And this is Scott Engler with the Houston Association for Talent Development. And I have one of our speakers that's going to be at the conference in just, I don't know, 10, 12 days from now. The conference is going to be virtual, and it's going to be on October 27th and the 28th. And we got a ton of great speakers. And so what I've been doing the last couple of weeks now is getting a chance to interview some of our speakers just to learn about what topics seem to be relevant and what topics are really going to be interesting. So people that are listening could say like, wow, I'm really, wanting to learn about this stuff as I'm being so blessed to learn a bunch of cool stuff myself. So I have Candice McGlen with us today, and she is the VP of Talent Strategy at the Engler Group, which is in partnership with Innovation Solutions. And so, Candice, thank you again for gracing us with your presence today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I know I've enjoyed listening to you share about what you do and why you do it, and really I'm hoping that listeners could also hear some of what I think you're kind of a cool wordsmith, some of your maybe Candices that are really catchy. So hopefully listeners could get to learn a little bit more about that too. But could you just start off by telling us a little bit about your professional background and what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So again, my name is Candice. I'm really excited to be here and hope to see everyone at the ATD conference. And so my background, I started off not the traditional talent development HR route. I actually started off in grassroots organizing, canvassing, and I thought my life would be working with NGOs or working to facilitate change within movements, and got a lot of experience doing that and never really left that mentality and that mindset. I was working with a global NGO and just trying to find, where I wanted to park in terms of my career, and got an opportunity to move into HR. And it was there where I started to see the connection of community organizing and HR, and how, that world of talent development and talent management really aligned, because it was all about building capacity through people. And it was about people power and how do you build momentum and give people the tools they need to succeed. And I've never looked back ever since, but I've been really committed to just assisting organizations with, doing just that, finding ways to build capacity through people, through the organization, removing barriers so that people can reach their highest potential and you have high performing organizations. I'm an author of a book. It's Engage Us Now, which sort of looks at that approach to talent management. And like you said, working with the Engler Group the last 3 years in our partnership with Innovation to really assist with open source technology and technology that can bring effective learning to the organization.
I love the title of that book. That's so catchy.
Yeah. That's one of the Candicisms. You got one so far.
Oh, no, we got 3. We got the people power. I heard another, building capacity through people. I don't know if that's a Candicism, but
yeah.
You said that when we talked last week, so I have it actually written down.
Nice.
I also love what you said in your summary. Organizations adept, working with organizations adept at overcoming obstacles by sidestepping conventional norms in favor of fresh, action-oriented thinking. And what I remember seeing too was that your background that you were sharing, right? You started with companies where you were able to think more creatively outside of the box, and I didn't hear you touch on that much now, but just sharing for our listeners, I imagine that that's been really, really helpful with the organizations or things that you do now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. From there, I worked with very passionate individuals that were passionate because of the mission and their commitment to make a difference. And so seeing that in the process of what talent management look like through that lens, and equipping people, with the desire, but providing them with the tools and resources to go and make change happen. Yeah, it's really helpful in my world of, whether it's diversity and inclusion or it's, building leadership development programs. It's been extremely helpful to tie those dots and to really look at how do you build impact, right? It's all about impact, not necessarily checking the box or just doing things and going with the status quo for the sake of doing it, but really identifying how can we make change happen? How can we be effective with our programs?
Ooh, so I have one question, and don't want to take us down the rabbit hole, but I think I'm going to ask what might be on a lot of people's minds, is that we all know when you get to corporate America that the fact of the matter is, if it's not a passion project or like something that we're raising awareness for, a lot of your staff aren't necessarily going to have that fire and passion. For some people, it's just a job. And so I'm curious how you could stoke that fire, or if you've noticed that there might be a different approach to help get people to move forward or develop when there's not maybe that like higher level of passion. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. If we go back to community organizing, I think everybody has an issue or a cause or something that they're passionate about, even if it's just a job, right? How can we build an environment where maybe their passion is their family or, their home life, or just making sure that there's a connection to the organization for everyone. You have to feel connected to the mission. And so one of the things I like to do, even at the onboarding process, is to share, here's the mission of the organization. Here are our values, here are guiding tactics for how we get this done. Where do you fit within this mission? Why is it important to you? And what will be your legacy as you journey throughout this company? And just get people to think that way and make it their own. They can make that decision for themselves. But when you provide a framework that's built on momentum and building momentum, and that's a community organizing approach. It's not telling people what they need to do, but it's connecting them to the issues that matter to them.
Ooh, you're getting me fired up this morning. No, I love it. Everything you're saying is like so empowering, and that's totally my own philosophy too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like giving people that ownership and responsibility,
right.
It really matters. And like, what's your legacy going to be? Even, whether you're at this stage of the company or this stage, like, or where do you want to be?
Right.
It's people clarify that and, understand up front too. Do they align with the mission? That's
right.
really important.
It's very important. And to just bring those values and that mission to life so that people know it's something that the company takes serious. It's not just words or empty statements on a website, but it's something that, guides the way that you do things. And, to that point of ownership and putting things into people's hands so that they can own it, that's what, when we look at development, a lot of times it's either, it's solely owned by the employee, go do it on your own, or it's something that the company really gets really detailed on, and it's just sometimes that can backfire, right? But just having a process in place where learning is facilitated, development is facilitated, and it's ongoing, and people can start to see, do I want to get to this level in the organization? How high do I want to achieve? What are the skills that I need to do that? And let me put a plan together, right? And feed that data into the organization so that, one, it's open and it eliminates I call it the tap on the shoulder, right? Where some people get tapped on the shoulder for whatever reason. Maybe the manager likes you, but there's a lot of different things that happen around decision points like that we just can't afford to have anymore, especially because we need to be able to build capacity for anyone who has the desire and wants to move forward in the organization. Putting the tools in their hands to learn and develop and grow is so important.
Oh my God, Candice, you're like music to my ears. And I mean that too, because, just to share, I'm not just to share a little bit about, my background so listeners could hear, I wrote a manuscript during COVID, and also just sharing with you that we could talk about maybe doing something separate.
Yeah.
But it's really based on, how even at Fortune 100 or 500 companies that I've either worked for or had clients for in my own business, that the continual development of their staff was what was lacking. Even if they had robust training programs initially, which a lot of them did, and I'll give you credit.
Right.
Do I think they could have done it better? Yes, but that's where I come in with my own standards, I guess you could say. But to what everything you're saying is just really, teaching people to advocate for themselves throughout their tenure. And just to share, I work with even, most of my clients were C-level executives and off the charts and intelligence and all these things and like everything you'd want in like maybe an all-star employee. Yet even there, we weren't taught how to advocate for ourselves as an employee. The same way we don't get those tools in the school system, and not to get off on that tangent, but it's really teaching.
Go back a scope, right?
But it is the same thing. How many times I help people negotiate a salary or raise or where they're wanting to go, but they had no context of how to do that effectively. It's like, well, my mortgage went up, or something. It's like, that's not an effective tool. And where do you want to go and why, and understanding their own strengths. It's just, we weren't taught these tools on how to develop as employees and humans, for that matter. But I guess what you're saying got me really excited, because I really want to hear you speak now, because this is what I think we need. And
we definitely need it. And I had a thought recently, and for me, I'm considered a millennial. And the funny thing about millennials, I think, is a lot of the development conversations, and there was a lot of, I guess it was called millennial bashing in the beginning of, my career, and just hearing things around, development, you need to wait for a development, that's something that you can get over time. What's the sense of urgency? And when I think about today and sort of where companies are and what companies are looking for in terms of building agile cultures and, social impact and all these different aspects, I think a lot of that is what we heard from that generation and other generations as well. But it's so important, I think, to figure out how to, we think about learning at the speed of change. It means being able to respond and move forward to changes that are constantly happening. Change is constant. And so we have to be open to ideas and thoughts that may come from people who are not high up in the organization, maybe emerging leaders. So finding ways to share knowledge, share information, develop people where they are, not necessarily always waiting for the right time, but development should be something that everyone has access to, and they can go as, far or stay wherever they want to stay, based on their preference.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that too, because I happen to be overly ambitious, and a lot of my clients were. And so I understand that not everyone is going to do what I do, and that's okay too,
Right.
As long as they're being productive, in my opinion, and they're feeling great, and, maybe engaging in their other priorities, like maybe, being a great parent is like what brings them the most joy. And, as long as they're getting what they need and giving what the company needs, then more power to them.
Yes. And, it's how do you develop people? And I think we always think either or for a lot of things, but it's yes. And you can offer development opportunities for everyone. And there may be people that take them, like you said, and then, there may be others who are fine, with the trajectory that they're on.
So what is the name of your presentation?
It's called Learning at the Speed of Change. And it's all about, the VUCA environment, right? It's volatile, it's uncertain, complex, ambiguous, all words that we consistently hear now this year,
Yeah.
but lots of change, but just what's needed, right? And it's about advancing the talent development profession rather, and how we can be seen as strategic leaders. At the beginning of this change, my team and I, we all, innovation team, we talked to several talent development leaders and professionals. And one of the common themes that we heard was, during times of scarcity, talent development or training is the first to go. Learning is the first to go. And so that made me pause. That made us pause. So we were like, learning is so important, especially in times of uncertainty, especially when it's so ambiguous. Like, knowledge should be a priority. It should actually lead the charge during times like this. So we just wanted to do a campaign, it was Keep Learning Strong. And we gathered thought leaders from all industries, learning and development business leaders, and just talked about what it was going to take to have effective learning during this time and what that looks like. So we'll be sharing some of the learnings from that campaign, and also just some strategies for how to ensure agile learning within an organization.
Oh, I love that. There was somewhere I wanted to go with that. Oh, could you say the acronym for VUCA again? What that stands
for? VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Yeah. And I could see how without that learning and development, especially during what we're going through now, that's going to create a lot of ambiguity and, volatility.
Yep.
Is that a word, volatility?
Yeah. Volatile, yeah.
I haven't used it in a while. I've used volatile, but not volatile.
Yeah. And that's the reality. Yep.
Sorry, I feel like when I talk, because I have a background in counseling, so when I talk a lot, and I've written a couple books and tons of articles now, just to share, so too, is like I compare it to family dynamics, organizations, because that just like is a really easy one for me to go to.
Yeah.
And I look at it, it's like if you were going through a crisis with your family, right? And you just decided that because we're going through a crisis, what's most people's immediate reaction, I think, at least I could speak for myself, is shoot, I need to make money, I need to do this. Your creative or critical thinking goes out the window, right?
Yeah.
And what I've found to be true is it's in those moments where you need the most to bring the family together closer than you've ever been before and say, look, we're all scared. Here, like, how are we going to come together? What
right.
do we need to do? How are we going to get through this? That's when you really need to bring in that nurturing, that like, we're going to learn together as we go, right? Because it is, if you don't know, that was one of my favorite sayings, and, like a new job or something. It was like, hey, let's learn together. I don't know this yet, let's learn together. There's this feeling of connection that comes along.
Yes.
Trust that can continue to be developed. I love one conference that I, spoke at a couple of years ago. It was like for HR people. And one of the things I'll never forget was one of the other speakers said, at any given moment in any relationship, trust is either being like strengthened or weakened or something to that effect. And it's really true. No matter who it is, you could be pulling away from that trust, that feeling of trust, or you could be pulling closer. So I'm seeing just like this is the time to get closer with all that stuff. And I think what comes to mind for me is the focus on you, the people, are a priority at the end of the day.
It's the people power.
And I think that's what's going to get them what they want. And the last thing I'll say on that, being a business owner myself, I understand the reality of I need to get these numbers. I need to, it's like two different brains. So it's like, I need to accomplish this. This is what's important. And then needing to take that step back to going into like what's really important, right? It's the humans that you're connected with. So it's like, for me, in my own experience, being a business owner myself and understanding what business is like and how to survive as a business, but like how people tie into that and like where to go with that is a lot of times intangible. It's the emotional stuff. It's the nurturing stuff. So it's not, to me, the first to mind. I'm like, we need to be productive. We need to do these things. We need to hit the streets or whatever. You know, a lot of times I go into business mode right away when I get in that mode versus coming together, developing trust, nurturing. Sounds like you're kind of saying as well.
Yeah. And I love that perspective. And I think that, you know, to your point, yeah, I always go back to yes and thinking, because it's so, yes, you know, the results, and you need, like, I see it all together as one for me, you know? And so like, and that's why, you know, the background of like organizing, you can't organize without people. Like, people equals momentum, people power, and their abilities to get, you know, to get those targets is so essential in these social movements. And so all the work that goes into it is all about, we're in this together. Like you said, it's all about unity around a common mission, bringing people together, mobilizing so that you can go and achieve those goals. So if you have a story to tell, that you're considering people, their issues matter. It's all a part of moving forward to reach the goals and the targets of the company. I think you have a win-win scenario.
And I'm sure you could speak to this better than I can, but, you know, like, just in my own professional background and, you know, getting people in the HR space to interview for my manuscript, like, it's when you have staff that develops and stays within the company or agile, guess what? You save a ton of money on having to hire people outside and fire people. And I do have that background in the hiring and recruiting space. That is not a cheap thing, not to mention the time it takes to acclimate people to your company. They might not be a good fit, you know, culturally. And so, like, having that agile approach is what me and one of the ladies I interviewed that work for Hewlett Packard were both in agreement on. It's like, look, if you could find out that you're, you know, like, I always, you know, I've shared, like, I would love to have a staff that had baseball cards, because if you could find out that Candice has actually a background in sales as well as talent development, and maybe she's not doing sales right now, but she knows how to do sales. Well, then, hey, guess what? As far as an agile team, I know maybe I could bring Candice in for the, you know, I like to use a sports analogy, for like the 6 man or 6 woman, right? To do some sales. And I don't need to hire someone else outside because she's already had that relationship. Well, guess what? I save myself a ton of time. And I'm probably going to be making a lot more money because she has a relationship with our customers and our coworkers. There's all sorts of benefits there. So I love that. You know, I'm really excited to see more companies adapt that approach. Been on my heart for a long time, hence why I wrote, you know, on book on it. And
so important. And to that point, because that's an excellent point that you addressed. We have solutions and answers within our companies, and oftentimes don't even know it because of so many different barriers, whether it's, you know, they're confined to that role. We just don't have the insights and the data on what other skills people have in the company. But those skills mean something, and they're translatable into the organization in some way. And we're just not even tapping into those resources. And so that's another, you know, when we talk about keep learning strong and learning at the speed of change, that is a key area there. And, you know, the innovation, we do have a tool that we use where employees are able to share those skills and things that they may not be using now, but they're able to plug that in so that there's a bigger snapshot on what they offer, right? Because that's what it's about. You need to be able to tap into the resources, you know, at any given time. May not be using them now, but here they are, you know.
And often I've found that we're all guilty of this. We'd have no idea unless you took the actual time. Like, you know, I have close friends that I'll look at their LinkedIn profile and I'm like, they worked here, they did this?
Right.
It's like, I don't know, we don't talk about it ever, you know, and like it was a while ago, they I guess switched careers and never came up. And it's like, I didn't know that hidden talent or skill. You know, and these are close friends I have. And it's just like, it's, you know, we forget about it too as humans. Like, I don't wake up every day thinking about what I did 10 years ago or 15 years
You
ago.
don't think about it, yeah, but it's very valuable, and I think even more now today, we need to be able to uncover those things and understand how they apply to who we are and what we can offer.
Yeah, and the way I like to look at it, just before we move forward, maybe with some other questions too about your speech, which it sounds like we're touching on a lot of stuff, is I love to look at everything that I've done throughout my professional career, or even my personal thing that might tie in, has woven together to make me the most unique version of
Yes.
myself.
Yes.
No one could do what Scott Engler does quite the same way, for better or for worse. But it's just it's a confidence booster, really, because it's look, I have this background in sales. I've worked with these populations. I've done this. I have a counseling background. I have this background, and it all weaves together. So that makes me who I am. And it really does build this sort of confidence that it's like, look, I have a lot to offer. And I believe that when you could instill, again, teaching our staff these things that we were never taught to think this way, right? And I know this because I've worked with talent development for many years now. It's like when people could see and understand and really own that, they're going to just thrive. You don't need to do anything. Giving them the tools, you don't need to teach them the techniques. It's just going to expand the way that they need to. Yep,
I 100% agree with you on that. It's the valuing experiences in a new way. So that people can share that.
Yeah, and what would be like, I guess, as far as your presentation goes, we've touched on a lot already. Is there anything that you would want to share right now that like really is going to make this presentation just like incredible for people that are watching it?
Yeah, I think for the presentation, it's going to be interactive. I think what it will offer is a new perspective on how do we advance talent development. I'm passionate about learning. I know that the people who are going to join are passionate about learning, but how do we take it to the next level? How do we remove barriers and look at it from, we're building capacity through people, plus removing barriers to really open up a world where, our organizations can respond to change. Let me, if I can remember the quote by Rick Warren, it's irrelevance happens when the speed of change outside of an organization is faster than the speed of change within an organization. And I think deep within that quote is a call to action for learning and development professionals and talent development and management and HR and all the people, within organizations. And that call to action is, how do we get people the tools they need to succeed and build organizations that remove barriers, whether it's our learning technique, whether it's our programs, whether it's, building psychological safety within the organization, so that we can really tap into the resources that are in the organization.
So I'm going to play the devil's advocate that I get a lot of times with these conversations.
Sure.
Because I think it's a I guess you could say a valid point. I don't agree with the point, but it's employee tenure has substantially gone down in our workplace, right? And so that's a big thing. And I know you mentioned the millennial thing, and that's one of the critiques too, right? Is like there's no loyalty anymore, but it's, in my opinion, it's on both ends. But the common rebuttal I get, or hear is, well, why should I put any time and money into developing my staff when they're only going to stay, like 3.5 years now is something like the average. I may have misquoted that, but shorter, a lot shorter, right, than the 20, 30 years. So what would be, are you going to touch on that in your presentation? Like that kind of addressing that? Because I know it's such a common.
Yeah, we will certainly address some of those, but I'll just say in the short of it, development cannot be seen as only benefiting the employee. I think that's rooted in that mindset that, well, we're offering them development and they'll leave the company. But not offering someone development is essentially saying that you are okay staying where you are as a company and not growing. Because if you don't grow your people, then you don't grow as an organization, because the organization is people. So I think it's just, yeah, I mean, and the reality is too, when people can see and visualize a future within your organization and they're deeply connected to the work that they're doing, I think you have a better shot of retaining people.
120%.
When people leave, it's typically because they don't see, like you, I have a background in recruiting, so I've done some recruiting, and a lot of the recruiting I do is reaching out to people who are already employed. And the easiest way to get someone to consider a career opportunity is to ask them about their career development and opportunities within their organization. If they're not on development plans, if they're not seen as a high potential with, learning or emerging leadership programs, they don't know. It's uncertain. So if they don't have some level of certainty based on the investment that you're putting in them and the feedback and where they feel that they'll be in the organization, then they're doing what they need to do to advance their career, because it's going to happen. If they have the desire to advance their careers, it's either going to happen in your organization or another organization.
Yeah, and most of my clients were at a company that were either like developing, but a lot of times transitioning out of, especially when I was doing recruiting stuff. People always mistakenly think it's all about the money, and it really is not. Sometimes it just depends on like case by case, but usually, especially for the type of people that like I know from interviewing some of the top like recruiting firms here in Houston and even in the country, top talent is hard to get and keep. And so your top talent most of the time is going to want to keep developing and doing the best they can for you. And if you're not providing that was one of the like top 3 most common things why, the people I work with, they're working for Fortune 100 companies. They're like, Scott, I haven't been able to advance in the last 5 years, and my company keeps making promises to me, and it's not happening, and then we have a new VP of something and they don't care, and it's like, that's why I want to leave. I'm like, I don't want to sit here anymore. So you're right. It's huge. And I love, my way of thinking, I think a little differently. I think it comes to like a fear-based mentality or an abundance, in my opinion.
Yes.
So if I'm trying to hold tightly, or if I'm afraid to produce into you because I'm afraid you're going to develop and leave, that's in my opinion, a horrible way of thinking to begin with.
Yep.
But I think that, hey, if I take good care of you, and really, I think part of it's also the hiring process, right, from the onboarding. So if there's no development, kind of to your point, which I think is genius, if we're not aligned on your potential development anyway from the beginning, then it wouldn't make sense for either of us for me to hire you, most likely. Mm-hmm. Right? Because then it's like, well, if we could see down the road that you're not going to be, growing with us, like why would you want to work here either? So at least we've established that. But if you do, then I'm going to dump the resources and care into you. And guess what? I even say too, even if you left me or something, if I've always been consistent with carrying you and developing you as a person, you outgrew our organization or just went on to something different. Employee referrals are the best referral. Yes. I've said this a million times. Like if Candice refers our company, that goes a long way on both ends. And if I know you were a great staff and we had a great relationship, just because you leave doesn't mean that like something good won't come out of that because I did things differently. Kind of like, again, relationship. Just if I dated someone for 2 years and we outgrew each other, right? If I was the person that I want to be throughout that relationship, who knows what could happen? But like, let's say the girlfriend was a reference, not that would happen most likely, but she, would most likely say, well, he's an amazing person or have great things to say. And it's just kind of like that way of like trusting that stuff will all work itself out, I guess. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And then as you were talking, I thought, development is not always the next position, right? It's just a matter of influence and impact, and sometimes allowing a person's ideas, thoughts, to be displayed, people an opportunity. You shared, all the things that make you unique and your experiences. There's something that you have to bring to the table that maybe your traditional role doesn't allow you to do. But finding ways for people to sort of expand even through their depth of experiences within a role is vital, because then that's where you get connection. People can continue to do, especially if someone's like top talent plus entrepreneurial in spirit, like you have to sort of account for that as an organization, and it benefits the organization too.
Yeah, I was just thinking, to your point, something that came to mind for me is I hate event coordination. And so let's say, we have a smaller company and that's part of my responsibilities, that I hate. And then I learned, oh, Candice has a background. She used to be an event planner.
Right.
Even though your role is in marketing, so it has nothing to do with event planning, let's say, I'm like, holy crap, like, would you want to help plan the company events? And you're like, yes. And like for you, it'll probably take you, what I've learned from, my own business, it'll probably take you a fifth of the time and a 20th of the energy and resistance that it would take me, right?
Right.
I don't want to do it. I freaking hate it. And then guess what? I could put my energy towards what I love doing in my role, what my strengths are. And for you, it's a no-brainer, and it's going to probably make you feel so much better at, within the company itself. It's a win-win. Again, it's like, right. And it just works itself out. People are like, well, how could people get their job done in, 40 hours? And like, my point is, if they're really good at it, naturally, really, like, not to get on a side note on it, but if someone's really good at it, it's not going to take them the same amount of time that it would take someone that's not as gifted or strong in that area. And they'll enjoy doing it and they'll get it done. They're not going to resist it or procrastinate. So that's been really my experience across the board. And so you can still be more efficient and effective, and everyone's going to feel better. Lots of wins.
Exactly.
Which translates into more income. There's all sorts of things of tying that into what the business could look at also from like a profit and loss standpoint. So that's a great thing to be able to accomplish. Well, Candice, this has been great. So two quick things. How could people learn more about you for the next few weeks up until the conference?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I think that's the easiest way to find me. Candice McGlen is the LinkedIn, and then innovationsolutions.com.
And it's got, innovation's got a unique spell.
Yes, with an E. Innovation with an E.
So ENOVATION Solutions.
Yes.
Excellent. And you're an MCGLEN, your last name?
Yep, MCGLEN, and it's Candice with an I. So CANDICE. MCGLEN.
And if anyone needs a visual, you could see her name on the bottom.
Yeah, I think it just popped up there. There.
Yes. Well, at least I see it. So, and what time will you be speaking?
So 3 o'clock on the Wednesday.
Okay, so Wednesday is the 28th.
Yep.
3 p.m. Central Time.
Yep, 3 p.m. Central Time. Learning at the speed of change. We'll talk about, just more effective learning and how we can build learning, skills people need, what technology we can use, what methods we can apply to ensure that our learning is in line with the amount of change that is happening all around us.
And last thing, I heard you touch on something, maybe like a sneak peek for people that would be attending. I heard the word interactive for your presentation.
Yeah, I'll do as much as I can, because I know we're in a virtual setting, so I'm going to do as much as I can to ensure that we get participation and engagement throughout, because it is the last session, I believe. So
okay,
it needs to be fun.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't know about you, but I know most learning and development people, myself included, who doesn't like interactive, learning that's applicable and fun, you know.
Right.
I know I do, so I'm excited for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much, Candice. Was there anything in wrapping up that you would want to share with people that are listening today, or might be coming to see you speak? What you want them to know?
Just really looking forward to it. I would just say if you want to check out some of the conversations that we've already had on innovation on Keep Learning Strong, that'll be some insight from some of the thought leaders that we've talked to. Also, just getting involved in that process, because we do want to make sure that we uplift the industry in line with what ATD Houston is all about and ATD. So if you're interested in, being a part of that, having a conversation with us, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've also been an ATD member for like a while, right? Is that correct?
Yes, I love ATD. I love what.
How long have you been part of? How long have you been part of Houston ATD?
At least years. It hasn't been that long, but it's been pretty good. Just the people and the networking opportunities and how passionate people are about the profession. It's just been refreshing to find a community like ATD.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I was a member before I stepped into the role I am now. So I loved meeting with other talent development people and just sharing ideas, and interviewing people has been super fun for me. So I have to contain myself too from all
I know what you mean. No, but you meet some really great people, and if anyone's not a member, I would say you definitely want to get involved and get plugged in some way.
Yeah, and to that point, if you're listening to, we do want to start focusing on learning more about the networking component for people right now at Houston ATD, and just like helping exchange even opportunities within that. And a lot of people are struggling to find work as much, so just also putting that out for people that are listening. That's something that we're wanting to first see more about what people from the organization want, and also what we think would benefit them based on what has been working so far. So moving forward into 2021.
Nice. Yeah. That sounds great.
All right, Candice. Well, thank you so much again. It was great having you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.